Hey there, we are back with our next episode of our farmhouse build, and today we are talking about our insulation. Hey there, my name is Yami. I am your Latina next door. Welcome back to Mi Casa. I have my husband here, Nelson, also known as the Latino engineer, and today we're talking about all things insulation, which means, by the way, that we're this close to getting our walls installed. We kind of went all out on this one, right? So, for our house, there was a lot of discussion about how we were going to insulate it. And Nelson had originally thought that, we were going to go with what everyone has been talking about lately, or it seems like it, and that was spray foam. However, we actually did that on our cottage, and so far we have not been impressed with the spray foam insulation, which that is a discussion for another day. So, we did want something a little bit more robust than your regular fiberglass. And Nelson began digging around and researching and seeing what was out there that was better.
You have several different types of insulation. I think the most popular ones are, fiberglass, which is like the pink stuff that everybody always sees, really itchy putting it up.
Mhm.
Then there's this stuff called rockwool or mineral wool. Can't even speak, which is made out of like stone, so remnants of like I forget whatever manufacturing process, and then they heat it up, spin it, and then makes it fluffy and really dense. Then you also have spray foam insulation. I mean, you also have cellulose, and there's a bunch of different other types, but really those three are the main ones that are being used. Spray foam is all the craze right now. Everybody wants to do spray foam because it's easy. I think they can spray a house of our size. They get it done in like 2 days. We got several quotes, and they come in with two chemicals, and then with a nozzle, and then they spray it, and then it expands. And then there's two different types of spray foam. You have closed cell, which is like a denser, really hard, and then you have open cell, which is like soft and squishy. And the closed cell has a higher R value, so you don't need it to be as thick to be able to hold heat or keep in the cold. Versus the open cell, you need a lot thicker. Um, and initially, I was like, yeah, let's do, closed cell, open cell throughout the whole house because that is the craze that everybody's talking about. The only downside to, well, not only there's
I think
multiple
I think there's more than one.
there's multiple. There are several downsides to it. So if you use spray foam, you have to have additional HVAC. So you have to have a fresh air intake because you're pretty much sealing your home and not allowing it to breathe in and out. Not that you want your house to have cracks and wind coming in, but if you spray foam it, or if it's spray foamed correctly, the whole house is encapsulated and no air comes in. Well, because of that, you got to bring fresh air from the outside into the home to be able to get clean air. Otherwise, your whole house will be stuffy, and then it'll retain moisture, get humid, and because of that, you also have to add a whole house dehumidification system. Again, if you don't do either one of those, then you're gonna like pretty much rot your house inside out because you're gonna keep all the moisture in. So on top of your regular HVAC units, you got to have that whole separate system of fresh air ventilation intake and a whole home dehumidifier. And if you don't size it properly, then you're still going to get like moisture issues. And also during the spray foam insulation, if they don't do it properly either, let's say there's one portion of the home that is not properly sealed, that's where all the air is going to come in, and then that's where you're going to have your moisture coming into. So not that it's bad, it's just you got to do a lot of extra stuff, and you got to make sure your house is 100% sealed. So if you have a little air leak at one of your windows, you almost have to get higher grade windows to make sure there is absolutely zero leaks to be able to do that. So it kind of stacks on top of each other, and then your costs just exponentially go higher. And builders, general contractors love it because it's quick and easy. You're in, spray, you're done. Um, Another negative or downside to it is um, if you need to do remodels or any of that stuff in the future, not that, hopefully you don't want to do that, but that stuff is in, your walls. So you got to like rip that stuff out. So if you ever go into a remodel or you need to move a wall that has a spray foam, I mean, you're adding several thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars, because you got to have somebody to come in, remove all of it, and then, fix it. Versus like if you got to spot something, you can open a wall, take out whatever, like normal insulation, the fiberglass or rock wool, you can still have the flexibility there. Or if you got to run electrical wires or anything in the wall, like you're pretty much just dead in the water without having to incur a huge expense.
And not only that, but the actual spray foam insulation is a lot more expensive than regular. So not only are you adding all these other systems in place that you have to add on to your baseline cost to build the house, but then just for that spray foam, it's costing you even more. And I mean, we got our very first quote for it when we were comparing like just regular insulation to spray foam. Wasn't it like an easy $25,000 more than just getting it regular insulate, like using regular insulation, or
Oh
was it
yeah,
more than that? Because I
no,
feel like
it was about 25,000 more. So it was
that's huge. That's like a huge amount of money to pay additional just for insulation, I thought.
and when you use spray foam, there's a lot of things that have to go right. So you have a temperature band that you can use it in. So like you can't be too hot or it can't be too cold, specifically too cold. So like, and if it is, they got to bring in heaters, heat the place up to be able to spray it. And the two chemicals that are used to combine to make the actual foam, those have to be up to date. So like, that chemical actually goes bad. So if it's not stored properly, with the person that's coming in to do it, or they're traveling around and they keep it in their, whatever they're driving it around in or delivering it with, if that's not properly maintained, then the chemicals go bad. And again, there's a winter chemical and then a summer chemical. So if they only use one version in the wrong time of the year. I mean, there's so much stuff that goes into it that people don't even think about it. And I know when I was talking to the spray foam insulation companies, they were not happy with the amount of questions that I was asking. Is that they're basically like, "Hey, shut up, let us do it. We know we do this. You're just a guy building a house." And I'm like, yeah, but it's my house. So like it may be nothing to you, but it's everything to me. You, it's just one job. I got to live with it for the rest of my life. So like that
Right.
also, and it wasn't just one spray foam company. It was like synonymous for like all of Middle East Tennessee, that like up, down, like I'll talk to, I mean, I don't even know how many of them, and nobody likes to be questioned. And I don't know why, because, if you're a good contractor, you want your customers to be well knowledged and versed in what you're installing, because then it's like, wow, then it's an easy sell, because all I got to do is just reassure them that this is a good product. But if you can't even talk intelligently about it to somebody that's not even in the industry, then it's like, well, then we're done.
Right. And so, based on all of the stuff that Nelson found out and us looking into it and really researching, and the additional cost, the additional hassle, trying to make sure that there's no excess humidity, which is something that we do deal with in our cottage every single day, especially in the wintertime. And going through a winter already in the cottage and experiencing it, we were like, we do not want that for this house. There's so many things that could go wrong with just the humidity. And so we knew we wanted something more than fiberglass because the weather up here can be pretty brutal. It does get very cold. We've been into the negative numbers up
Mhm.
here. And we've also, we can get some pretty hot summers too. So not only do we want to keep the heat out in the summertime, but we want to keep the warmth in the wintertime, because right now it's pretty frigid. And we knew something better than fiberglass was gonna have to be what we put in our walls. So that's when Nelson discovered, rockwool. And like he said, it's a denser material, and we're going to walk you through different areas and show you kind of what it looks like. but it's a material that's better than fiberglass because it doesn't have that glass component in it. So it's not as, hard to install and irritating to install, which was great. I mean, it still has particles and dust just like anything else, right? It's still good to wear a mask when you install this, but you're not going to be itchy and scratchy all over like you would if you did have insulation, which our guys who installed it were very appreciative of.
Yeah. I mean, it's still good to wear PPE, long
Yeah.
sleeve, eye protection,
Mhm.
and definitely the respirator, because anything that has to do with dust, you always want to wear a mask. And it doesn't matter what type of
Mhm.
insulation you're putting. Even when you're cutting wood, I mean, I know I wear a mask when I
Absolutely.
cut wood because it's like dust goes everywhere. So it's like, there's still components of PPE that you got to put on.
So not only was it like that component was easier to install and work with, but it's actually easier to put inside of the studs. It stays in a lot better than your regular insulation. You don't have to worry about staples. It's easier to cut. You basically cut it with a kitchen knife, right?
Yeah, it's like a bread knife, like a
Yeah.
serrated bread knife. It cuts.
That's all you need in order to cut it down. It keeps its shape very well. And what is it? It's uh, pest proof, right? It's
Yeah,
mold proof.
right. So it's water repellent,
Okay.
water resistant. So like even if it gets water, it's not gonna saturate and sit in it. Pests like bugs, mice, rats, they hate it. So like I guess whatever it's made out of, so if they ingest it, it's no good for them. So not that it's poisonous, it's just it's not like digestible.
Mhm.
So they hate it, which is good because then it deters from like, pests coming into your home. Or if they do, they get into it, they're like, yeah, we're out.
Mhm. What else?
um,
It's mold resistant, it says, right?
Mold resistant.
Mhm.
Fire, it has a
Oh,
really
yes.
high, for it to catch on fire. I mean, it's, I forget what, uh, not fireproof, but retardant. So like, again, if you have,
Creates a firewall, right?
well,
Kinda
right. So,
like that, yeah.
but if if your whole house is full of spray foam, if you've ever got foam and put a little bit of fire to it, I mean, your house would poof immediately just catch into fire. Now, not that this helps from that, but it helps to like isolate if there's a fire in one location. You will have time to go and hopefully put the fire out in the location where it's at. Versus with spray foam, the whole thing is just going to immediately combust, and then I mean you pretty much lose your house.
Yeah, yeah, that makes me feel better. So there's a lot of components of this rock wool that we really, really liked. It's definitely thicker. There's different applications for it as well. You'd have different depths for our walls. We have interior walls that we've used rock wool in for soundproofing as well. It's very versatile. It was easy to go up. We feel much better about it. And so I think what we're going to do is we're going to walk around, show you the areas where we put it, and just kind of talk you guys through, like we did with like the electrical and the plumbing, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So here, as you guys can see, we have our exterior walls covered with rock wool. These are all exterior walls. And we had to get thicker insulation, right? Because we actually have 2x6s for exterior walls, correct?
Yeah. So when we built the home, we had the option of going by 2x4 or 2x6. 2x6 allows you to put more insulation. So the rock wool that we had to use for all the exterior walls are 2x6, or I think they're 5.5 inches thick because they're not truly 6 inches deep. But the insulation being that thick gives you a higher R-rated um, insulation, so it's going to retain heat or cold a lot better than a 2x4 wall because you have an additional 2 extra inches of insulation.
As you can see right here as well, none of this required any kind of stapling. There's nothing that comes out and is stapled on top of the actual stud. Everything fits right inside and it stays put very well. So that was a benefit of using this instead of using regular fiberglass insulation.
All right, so you can see it looks kind of green, gray. It's pretty dense. This is a 2x4 or a piece that goes inside a 2x4. The 2x6 is thicker. So, the thicker it is, the higher the R rating is. But but what it does is goes in, and then it's just held by pressure. So it's slightly bigger than the studs, because the studs are 16-inch on center. So it's slightly bigger. So when you kind of push it in, it expands into the gap, and then it's just held by pressure. There's several different types of rock wool. Then you have ones that are rated for your exterior walls, and then you have some that are rated for your interior walls. The reason you want to put them in your interior walls is for soundproofing. So they have what's called comfort bat, which is pretty much what the exteriors, and this is safe and sound. The safe and sound is not as dense, so it's a lot more fluffy. So the intention behind that is so it absorbs the sound. So this is going to be Yami's office, when she does her voiceovers. So, once we put the door in, all of that rock wool surrounding it. There's rock wool in the ceiling as well. And the theory behind that is to be able to, keep the sound in and keep the sound out. So if the kids are running around in the house or upstairs, you won't hear it as much. We also decided to put insulation between the first and the second floor. I don't know if that's typically what's done. The person that was helping us put insulation up told me that normally builders do not do that, because obviously that's an additional cost. But we figured, this is going to dampen the sound from upstairs downstairs, and it's also going to, retain the heat or cold. We have two air conditioning units, we have two HVAC systems, one for upstairs and one for downstairs. So, we also want to, if nobody's upstairs during the day while the kids are school, we can turn that unit off. But we also don't want to sacrifice, losing the heat or cool. So that's why we decided to, insulate the floors between the first and second floor.
Another reason, we thought about that as well is the kids' area is upstairs. Not only do they have their bedrooms, the bathrooms are upstairs, as well as their lounge area where they can watch TV and movies and play and all that stuff. So we figured if there was an extra layer of just soundproofing as well, that would help us, because they can be up there making as much noise as they want, and it wouldn't affect us down here either. So that was another reason that we decided to go ahead and insulate between the floors. We're also going to be using a carpet upstairs for the kids, so that's going to be an additional amount of, soundproofing, because with the pad and then the actual carpet, it'll also make everything nice and quiet. And that's another thing, if we have something going on downstairs and the kids need to go upstairs and go to bed, that's also another benefit from it. We don't have to be so quiet down here, and the kids will be undisturbed up there. So, I think it kind of goes both ways. We really thought about this and wanted to make sure that we just checked every box and we didn't, regret not doing something in the future.
We don't have many interior walls that don't have insulation.
There are some that don't, and because it wasn't necessary. And let us show you where these walls are. So as you can see here, that is our front entrance foyer area. One of the sides is not insulated and the other one is. And that's because the one to the left that is insulated, that is part of Nelson's office. And he does work at home during the day, and he does need some quiet, especially when he has meetings and stuff. So we wanted to make sure that all of his interior walls were also insulated with that soundproofing rock wool. The one on the right that you see is part of the wall that faces the dining room area, and it's all open concept here, because where I'm standing right now, where the camera is, that's where the kitchen is. So we don't necessarily need to add insulation there, because it's not going to really serve any purpose. It's all open air here, as you can see. Of course, that corner that you see towards the right that does have insulation, that's exterior wall, so we had to insulate that. Another wall that we have right here is this wall in the kitchen, and this wall that you see here is where our stove is going to be at. The stove is right in the center right here, and there's cabinetry on either side. This is just a pass-through. Behind that wall is our butler's pantry, so there's no point in having insulation there. It would be honestly useless, to be honest. We don't need to soundproof that area, as it has openings on both ends that aren't closed off, and as far as heat retention, that's not necessary either. So that wall also doesn't have insulation. However, there is something on that wall that we do want to talk about, so you guys can see what we kind of did and how we thought ahead before we have the drywall up. Now, I'm sure you notice all of these pieces of wood throughout here. And this was something that Nelson did prior to getting any of the, drywall installed and all that stuff. He wanted to make sure he had that done because this is going to serve as additional bracing for our upper cabinets and lower cabinets when we put them in. Sometimes it can be a little difficult to find a stud exactly where you want it or where you need it when you're installing cabinets. And Nelson wanted to make sure that we were braced, prior to putting anything up, because we didn't want to, regret that later on and him thinking, oh, I should have braced it behind here. We also made sure that there was bracing in the center where our hood vent's going to go. So there's a place to attach it when we install it. And again, that's just going to make our life a little bit easier when we come in after the drywall is, set up. We know that there's stuff behind the drywall that we can attach our cabinets to. And we've already gone through and taken pictures of this and also taken measurements of how high and how far from the ends all of these are. So that when the drywall is up, we can just take the measurement and know exactly where that bracing is. So that was something that we did with the cottage before we put our walls up, and that helped immensely whenever we decided to put stuff up on the walls. And so we decided this was probably going to be a good idea here too, so that we could be better prepared when the cabinet installs take place. And we've done this to the bathrooms as well. So we're hoping that that's just going to make things easier when we install them.
Yeah, and again, don't let the cabinet makers talk you out of this, because some of them will be like, oh, if I know what I'm doing, I don't need bracing. Why not put it up? It's easy, doesn't take anything. And then you do the measurements, okay, cool, anywhere from here to here, these 4 feet, I can just, at the appropriate height, I can just put a drill in or a screw in and we're done. Versus a cabinet maker trying to show off. I'm like, hey, I can find studs.
And we are actually going to be installing these cabinets ourselves. So we wanted to make sure that we had the extra help. Not only that, but these are 10-foot walls, and we have the cabinetry to fill those 10-foot walls. So not only are the cabinets going to be heavier when we install them on these walls, they're also going to be able to hold a lot more, which is going to increase their weight. So we wanted to make sure that all this was nice and protected, and we didn't have any issues with anything being too heavy for this wall. This interior wall is also a 2x6.
Nope.
Oh, just kidding. It's a 2 by what?
2x8.
Oh, 2x8. So it's even stronger than just a regular interior wall. So we were really thinking ahead when we built this one right here. We just wanted to make sure that there was a lot of bracing. We also did the same thing with this wall, as you can see. There's going to be upper cabinets here, and then in the center there's going to be the fridge. But there's also going to be cabinets above the fridge. So we made sure that there was bracing up and to either side of the refrigerator. And again, that's just to make sure that we have enough places to attach it, and we have enough, strength behind the wall to be able to hold those cabinets. So one of the areas where we did decide to use regular fiberglass was in the garage. And this is that pink stuff Nelson was talking about.
Yeah, so I'm wearing gloves because obviously I don't really want to get the stuff on my hands.
Right, and as you can see, there's a couple areas on this wall where there is rock wool, and that's because we had some extra pieces and they went ahead and used it where they could.
And it was easier to cut the rock wool versus this fiberglass. So like the smaller sections, they just put a little bit of the rock wool. And the reason we decided to insulate the garage, because normally you don't insulate the garage because you're just parking your cars in, is we're going to have a bonus room above the garage. So we wanted to retain as much heat as we can. The bonus room upstairs is a conditioned space. The garage is not. So again, we wanted to retain the heat or the cold as much as possible. So that's why we decided to insulate the garage walls.
Right, and behind him, as you can see right there, that is the access to the bonus room. So in order to get to our bonus room, you have to go through the garage. So if the kids want to access it in the wintertime, we don't want it to be absolutely crazy freezing in here, as well as the summertime. And another reason we did that was because in this garage is where we house all of our water filtration systems system, our water pump, our heat pump, everything is going to be going in that nook right there. So we want to make sure we protect those pipes and those systems as much as possible during the heat as well as the cold. So having that extra layer of protection will definitely keep that stuff in a good state for longer. We want to make sure our pipes are protected and everything from the extreme cold as well. So that was another reason we went ahead and insulated this space.
I put extra wiring in there so I can put a heater in the event that we realize it's too cold. I can easily connect a space heater, and it gives me enough time to hardwire something in. So we do have the ability to heat this whole area up. I even ran 240 volt there in case we want to put a bigger space heater to warm this up. We don't know what it's going to be like once the doors are closed and how this room's going to feel. We're going to put a thermometer here that we'll be able to monitor inside the home at all times. So again, we're trying to do everything we can to make sure everything does not freeze.
And to add on to that, our garage doors that will be going in these two areas right here, they're also insulated. They have insulated walls. It's not just a metal frame. So that's going to help as well, we believe. We're still in the garage, and as you can see here, we did insulate the ceiling of the garage with rock wool because above it, again, is that bonus room. So Nelson wanted to make sure that we had the best insulation possible for the flooring for that upstairs area. So everything upstairs is nice and contained. So this right here is Nelson's office, and as you can see, exterior walls are insulated as well as these interior walls for soundproofing. This is where he's going to spend most of his time during the day, and we want to make sure he is not interrupted. Our bedroom right here is also insulated, and we do have insulation above us as well as soundproofing toward the rest of the house. Now this area right here is not insulated because that is our safe room. However, the gentleman who installed all of our insulation, all of the scraps that remained from when they did their cuts, they actually put it on the other side of this vault. And basically when this place was built, it was built inside of the exterior walls. So right back there, the 2x6s actually run on the perimeter of the safe room. So what they did was they went from above, which was actually access from the second floor, and they basically stuffed in between all of the 2x6s on the outside on both this wall and then the other wall on the outside of that. So this is actually insulated on the outside of the cement blocks. Yes, yeah, that's it. The exterior of the cement blocks are insulated. That's why you don't see any on these right here. that's it for today's video. We hope you enjoyed this episode of our farmhouse build and learned something about insulation and understand why we went with what we went with.
Again, remember, always do your research. We chose this type of installation because this is what we wanted to go with. No, we're not knocking anything on as far as do what makes, most sense for your home and whatever application you're putting the stuff in. So, like, again, do your research. We just gave you information of what we did. Ultimately, it's up to you, and only you can stop forest fires.
So that's it. And we will see you guys back here very soon with our very next episode. Until then, adios.